Hi guys, welcome back to the Stickman Sessions podcast. This week's guest was the wonderful Pete Murphy. He's an artist and musician who's released countless albums over the last couple of years, the latest of which came out just in the past week. There's a full review of that on the Stereo Stickman website done by our writer Larry. But for this chat, we talk everything from songwriting to stage performance, confidence issues, the current state of the music industry in general, and just get some really good insight from Pete's perspective as an experienced artist who's been working in the industry for quite a long time now. So I hope you enjoy it, I hope you get something out of it, and thank you for tuning back in. What I wanted to start with was I interviewed you once, in the past for Stereo Stickman, just a written interview. And one of the quotes that you said was that you'd been a professional musician for more than 20 years. You said you'd been gigging since you were at school, and you'd done everything from like little open mics to big budget albums with big names and things like that. So that's a massive part of why I wanted to have a chat with you. I thought it'd be useful to our community and just, really nice to find out a bit more about that, if that's all right with you.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So just to start like right at the beginning, where did everything start musically for you? What was the first thing that you got into?
Well, it began with my dad. He had a guitar lying around the house. He in the spare bedroom, he had an office for work, and he had an acoustic guitar in there that he played guitar a bit when he was a teenager and in his 20s. And I used to kind of go in and into his office, and I would look at the guitar. And then I think I was 7, and my parents asked what I wanted for Christmas on that particular year. And I said, a guitar. And that was it, really. My dad taught me my first chords.
When you were 7?
He taught me Yeah. So he taught me. The first chord I learned was a G major, and then he taught me the Grand Old Duke of York. That was the first song that I learned, and it went from there. Really, I had an interest in music before that as well. I grew up on my dad's records. Really, there was he was into the early Beatles. I remember there were Queen albums around. There were Day at the Races, so I used to love listening to like Bicycle Race and things like that. The novelty songs kind of stood out to me, so Bicycle Race was like a big one. And then there's a picture of me somewhere as well, sitting on my dad's chair, listening to Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July album, and I've got the album sleeve opened in front of me. It's actually kind of almost bigger than me. So yeah, I kind of grew up on those things. So, melodic pop music. So there's, as I said, the Beatles, Queen, and then I kind of progressed from there to his Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple albums, Black Sabbath, when I got a little bit older. But yeah, that was the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That sounds like a potential album cover, that photograph.
I have an album called Thelonious Punk that you have reviewed.
You do indeed. Yeah.
The cover of that album is a picture of me I was probably around 7. It was my birthday party, and I had a fancy dress party, and I wanted to be a punk. So
I was going to ask about that. That's really nice to know. So it is actually just an old photograph of you. Yeah.
Well, I have good memories of the punk scene, really. When I was very, very small, I grew up in Coventry, and I was in Coventry Town Centre with my parents. And there was a person selling balloons, and I really wanted a balloon, and they were going to take me to get one. By the time we got there, all the balloons had gone, and I got really upset. And there was a crowd of punks standing just across from us, and the one guy had bought a balloon, and he saw that I was upset, and he came over and he gave me his balloon. He was a guy who was dressed up like the punks of the day, the late 70s, with the studs and the leather and the the safety pins, and it taught me a lesson very early on, to not, I think. Punks may before that have looked a bit scary to me, but here was this punk coming over and giving me a balloon.
To not judge by appearances and dress, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a very early lesson. I must have been about 4 when that happened, something like that.
That's cool that you remember that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you started to play guitar. You did Grand Old Duke of York. At what point did you start like thinking, right, I'd like to be in a band, or like what was the next step after that?
The next step was I had guitar lessons at school, at junior school. There was this guy. He was really, really cool. His name was Peter Jenkins, and he didn't actually work at the school. He just came in, I think, once a week to teach some of us guitar, and I think there were only 3 or 4 of us who ever had guitar lessons, really. And he made a big impact on me. I'd say, I want to learn this song. I want to learn this Madonna song. And the next week he'd come back with chord sheets with this, Madonna song, and he'd worked it all out for us, and he'd teach us how to play it. And he was, I think he was my favourite teacher because, he was someone I saw as being very cool, and he could play lots of songs.
Yeah.
So that was the next step, and that was junior school, so I was still very young then. I was 8, 9, something like that. But as far as getting into bands, I moved from Coventry to Solihull when I was about 12.
Yeah.
My dad bought a business up there, and so we moved, and I moved to a new school, which was it was quite difficult. Everybody's bonds and friendships had already been long since built. You grow up through infants, juniors and seniors with people, and so I didn't really fit in, but I ended up falling in with a few people who we formed a band at school, and we were terrible, but it was enough to make me realise that's what I wanted to do. There were things that stood out to me before that that made me think I want to be a performer from a very young age. When I was 3, I went to see Grease at the cinema, and seeing John Travolta on the car doing the Grease Lightning song. That I think that was one of the first things that made me think, yes, I want to be a performer. But when I actually got a taste of it, when I was, in my friend's garage and he was hitting some drums and I was playing guitar, and that it was, this is exactly what I want to do.
So that's like a pretty eclectic range of influences, which makes sense having listened to, a couple of your albums and different stuff that you've done, because it's not really possible to confine you to a single genre or style, if that makes sense. I think that's really nice. You don't get a lot of people. I mean, to mention the Grease thing as well, and kind of then previously we were talking about Stevie Wonder and stuff. It's quite a wide range.
I love Stevie Wonder, I've always. At the age when I got into my first band that I mentioned, I was getting into rock music, and I fell really into that 80s rock kind of scene, the Guns N' Roses and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
were you a gigging band, or were you just playing in the garage?
We progressed, to playing gigs, and it was kind of we. I remember there was 3 of us from school, and we found this a singer who was a girl. She was a bit older than us. I think we were kind of like 15 or something like that, and she was maybe late teens, early 20s, and we ended up, we used to play the local nightclubs, and we got reviewed in Kerrang magazine and things like that, which was, for us, we thought we were rock stars, and, we've made it, we're in Kerrang. But it was, and we'd play, there's venues in Birmingham, like places like Edwards Number 8 that we would play. And these are venues that our heroes were playing as well, and we, later bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam were doing early gigs there and things like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
we were like, oh, we've met, you know, we're with the big boys kind of thing,
Yeah.
even though we were terrible.
No, that's cool. What was the name of the band?
X-Rated, which is a terrible name as well.
I like it. It's good. In what way were you a terrible band?
You look at bands these days who, I mean, take the Arctic Monkeys. They, what were they, 17 when they came out or something? And they were doing these incredible, you know, punk pop songs. You know, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. And when we were 17, we could barely string two chords together. Really, you know, it was very loose. It was very very unprofessional and very
Lots of energy kind of thing, though.
Scrappy, yeah. But then, as I said, you know, you take some of these bands that have really like, I mean, the Arctic Monkeys are the ones I can think of because they were very young at the time, and it was just we were just a completely different level to that kind of thing. I think, as songwriting wise as well, we had no clue really.
So at what point did you personally start properly getting into songwriting then and coming up with your own original material?
I always used to mess around with the little ideas and things, but I never considered myself a songwriter. Once that band finished, I got in with a singer who I'm still in touch with, a girl called Ronnie Perry. She does kind of country rock stuff now, and she's an incredible singer. And I worked with her for a little while, and then I got into a band called. Well, I didn't get into a band. It was kind of I met a singer called Jack Rubinacci, and we ended up being in a band together called Honeyman. Jack is now he lives in Norway. I'm still in touch with him as well. I played on a couple of his albums. And he's kind of quite well known in Norway, and I think he gets radio play in France and things like that. And so we were in this band called Honeyman, and it was the first band I'd been in where I thought, yeah, there was everything was there, all the pieces were in place, the chemistry was there, the songwriting was great, the performances were everything just felt right.
Yeah.
And at that point, I still wasn't really writing. I didn't really start writing seriously.
So what was your role in the band? Were you the singer?
No, I was guitar player.
Okay.
I've never. I know you mentioned my singing earlier in the email you sent me earlier, and I've never considered myself a singer at all.
Oh, okay.
And I still don't really. It's just something I do really to get the songs across. I don't have a band, so I have to do everything myself.
Do all the parts. I understand that.
Yeah, so and I've never considered myself to be a singer. It's I've always struggled with my voice. It's
I wouldn't have thought that at all from listening.
Yeah, I don't know. Excuse me. It's kind of a really weird thing. I have only started singing in front of people recently. Up until recently, I couldn't. I could do backing vocals on stage with a band. I always have done, but
not so much the front person.
Yeah, singing lead vocals on stage for me is something that I still haven't got there yet. I'm at the point of. I know you're aware of the other project that I do, the Edward show thing, and I'm getting to the point of taking that live and being the front man. And one of the main reasons for doing the Edward show is it's a stepping stone. It's going out in character as a front person seems easier than going out as Pete Murphy.
I completely understand that. Yeah,
and
it's kind of like a mask that you can wear.
Yeah. It's a stepping stone really to me being able to go out as myself because I'm at the point where I don't quite have the confidence to do that yet. And I think I probably strayed way away from the point. You were asking about when I started writing songs, was it?
Yeah, you were talking about the second band that was really good.
Yeah, okay. So it ended up Jack, the singer, he left the band, and we got another singer in, and the chemistry just wasn't the same. It became a different band, and it got to the point where none of us were really having fun. So it ended. And I didn't really start writing songs until I was in my early 30s. So about 10, no, it was a bit more than that, actually. Sorry. We're probably talking about 15 years ago. So I was late 20s when I started writing songs. I mean, just for reference, I'm 43 now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, and then when did you? How many albums have you recorded, or EPs, or projects in full?
Well, again, because of the lack of confidence in my abilities, I didn't release any of my music. I wrote hundreds and hundreds of songs over the years and never let anybody hear them, really. And it's only I released my first album in January 2017, and since then I think I'm.
So it's less than 2 years that you've been putting solo stuff out.
Yeah. So in that time, I've done, as far as solo albums go, I've done 12 solo albums. Wow. I did an album, a collaborative album with an artist that you know called Acoustic Maddie.
Yeah.
So we did a joint thing together. Plus, I've done a few EPs and things like that. Some of the albums that I've done have been covers of other people's albums. I actually I quite enjoy doing that.
Okay. What, with just putting your own slant on it, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've done 2 covers of entire albums by an artist that I mentioned in previous interviews called Ergo Fizmiz. Yeah. He's one of my biggest influences, one of my favourite musicians. So I've covered two of his albums, and I've also covered an album by an artist called Zach Phillips, who he owns a record company called OSR Tapes in America. Okay. So yeah, but everything else is stuff I've written.
Okay, so there's loads left that you potentially could put out at some point.
I tend to leave things where they are. So it's I mean, I know I've written hundreds of songs in the past that have never been heard. I probably won't do anything with those. They'll just sit there on a hard drive forever because I always want to do something new.
What do you think the difference was then when you wrote like Thelonious Punk or the Black Valentine album? Why do you think you wanted to put those ones out? It's just a case of gaining a bit more confidence in myself. When I did my first solo album, it's an album called Cognitive Decline. It's a rock album, kind of grungy, funky rock. And it took a long time to make. I got into a cycle of doing takes over and over again, many times. I was never happy with anything that I did. And I actually abandoned the album and gave up music for a while because I just couldn't get what I heard in my head out onto tape, if whatever you want to come back through the speakers,
Yeah, so I quit for a while, and then I just thought, I think about 6 months passed or something, and I thought I should just put these out. I'm probably never going to release or record anything again, so I should just kind of finish them off as best I can and put them out and as a kind of a farewell to the music business. So I finished it off and put it out as I didn't put it out as an album. I put it out as a collection of demos. And it was not long after that I discovered Ergo Fizmiz, and that is when my confidence and creativity took off, really. And so I kind of credit him greatly with helping me find what I needed in order to thrive as an artist, and I've been lucky enough to kind of spend time with him as well. I mean, he performed 2 weekends ago in Frome with a band that he has with two guys from Rotterdam, and went down there, and we hung out for the evening, and it's always inspiring. Every time I see him, he does something different. I've seen him perform in London. I've seen him perform puppet shows. I've seen him perform random spoken word things, rock and roll gigs, and it's. I think that's had an impact on me, because I've always been into many different things. Like we've already talked about the wide range of influences, and it again, that's given me the confidence to not stick with one style. So that's why Thelonious Punk is different to Jenny LeBlanc or whatever else. I think I try and do something different with every album.
The very first time I heard you, I think it was on the Kissing Spiders track with Acoustic Maddie, and then it was after that, I think I heard. I think Thelonious Punk was the first album of yours that I wrote about, and I was just blown away. I thought it was incredible, and I thought you just sound like you've been doing it for a long time, and I just assumed you were gigging and kind of touring with it, because that's the kind of thing that it would just be amazing if you had like the full band setup. I don't know, I pictured it at like a festival stage or something like that. Some of those songs would go down really well with that kind of thing. Have you ever played any of these with a band?
No, I've been playing with a band the last few years. It's actually recently finished, but I was playing guitar for a friend of mine called his band called Malone, and it's mainly due to I don't know apathy, audience apathy, really, that we've stopped gigging. It's a band that I really loved being part of, and it's the songwriting's good. I mean, they're all Matt's songs. It's his solo project, and just there's 3 of us guys who played with him, and it was I don't know. The songwriting was it was rock music, but it had something interesting and unique about it. It wasn't just the typical 3-chord rock music that you hear a lot on the radio and things like that, but people just weren't coming to shows. I think the last gig we did, I think we played to the sound man, the barman, the promoter, and the promoter's friend, who loudly proclaimed that he was leaving halfway through the set, and it gets difficult to continue. But and it's things like that have stopped me from taking my own thing live. It's hard to get people out of the comfort of their homes and their Facebook and things like that these days, and get them to travel out to shows.
Was that another show in like your hometown? So everyone by this point had already seen you. Yeah, but it's difficult to get people, even if whether it's your first show or your 100th show. It's difficult to get people out, difficult to get people interested. All the promotion and advertising in the world, just it stumps me. I've seen some of my favorite artists in the world play to 2 people or 3 people, and it's it's difficult. I went to a show on Saturday, and in the same theatre there was an Adele tribute playing, and I was watching another show in the same building, and the Adele show had hundreds of people, and the gig that I was at, it was great, and there was hardly anybody there. There were 10 people in the room, and it's. What do you think that says then? That obviously there are people that have watched maybe things on TV or watched kind of the X Factor and that kind of thing. Why are they more influenced to come out and see something like that rather than to support something a little bit different? Or
well, It's a difficult subject. It's I went into this in an interview I did with you a while back about that. I think people have been conditioned, and they want easy things. It's easy to go and listen to somebody singing songs that somebody else has made famous. It's easy to listen to nice, pretty melodies, which there's nothing wrong with nice, pretty melodies, but it's there's a lack of adventure. I think not just in music, just in life in general. That there's, I don't know. I think things are too structured, and people. It'd be nice if people were more adventurous, I think.
Yeah, possibly. I think there has been a slight shift, maybe just in very, very recent years, because there's a couple. I generally, like, if I watch interviews or read other articles, I get into a lot of hip hop, because hip hop artists tend to really have the business side of things down a lot more than other genres do. And there's a competitive element to it, so they want to be the best, and that's within their lyrics and stuff. So the confidence just kind of grows and grows. But also within, like, the punk scene. Have you heard of a band called Idols that have recently?
I haven't. I don't really know a lot of what's going on in the world musically. As far as the, I don't listen to the radio, so I'm a bit closed off. Really,
No, fair enough. They're not. It's not mainstream by any stretch of the imagination. They're a band from Bristol, which I used to live in Bristol for about 3 or 4 years. And they've been going for years, and very, very recently they got on the Jules Holland show, and I don't know how that came about, but since then things have been kind of, they've been getting punk big again, and there's a few other bands like Shame and a couple of others that I can mention. So that sort of punk scene is kind of thriving at the minute. If you watch, I haven't been to any just yet, but I'm hoping to. But if you can see on YouTube, there is a sort of new energy coming to that kind of thing, where people do just want to come and listen to something loud that that with a bit of depth, and it's not auto-tuned and it's not perfect. And that's quite exciting to watch. But also I watched them in an interview, and they were saying that a lot of their friends had said or had implied that they should perhaps give up now. They were all in their 30s and they've been doing it for years, and this was just before things started to take off for them. So there is an element of, like, what is it about some artists that are able to just keep on going and pushing and doing all these free shows and doing all the promotion and stuff continuously year after year after year, whereas most people, I think, step away from it at a certain point, or find it too difficult. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know both types of people, really. I know people who have stepped away from it for various reasons, and I know people who still continue to plug away and do it. I mean, I'm one of those people. I do it because that's what I do. It's funny because I remember when I was I think I was around 21. Somebody who my wife worked with at the time said it's a shame that he's too old to make it now, and I was 21 at the time, but yeah. So now what am I now? 22 years older than that, and I'm still going. I think for me it's I've kind of changed a lot of my ideas and definitions of what success is. I don't have the same goals. I don't have the same dreams as I did when I was 16, 17, 18. And, and I think my goals probably have changed numerous times throughout my musical, can you call it career? If you don't,
absolutely
haven't made it in other people's eyes. So I and I'm at the point now for the first time in my life where and I felt this way kind of since last year, since around the time just before Thelonious Punk, where I feel that I am successful in what I do. I am able to create when I want, what I want. Nobody's telling me that I can't do something a certain way. Nobody is telling me that I have to do this, or I have to write a single, or I am free to be who I want with my music and express myself exactly how I want to.
Though that was the other thing that you said that made me want to talk to you about this, because I think you mentioned that in the interview, didn't you? That you just felt that freedom that you feel to create whatever the hell you want, because there are no rules and there's no one putting up walls around it or saying it has to be this kind of way, and it must be quite do you think it's changed then the way that you approach writing, and do you feel like maybe everything that you write now and record is slightly better or slightly more means more to you?
Yeah,
the less that you care, kind of thing.
I mentioned that on my first album, I got into a cycle of doing endless takes, and it drove me crazy, and I gave up and all of that. These days, I make albums very quickly. I tend to spend between 2 and 6 weeks on an album, and that's including the writing, recording, mixing, and mastering. I think. And I do things very quickly, and a lot of things are improvised. And I tend to. I feel that my music is better for it. Definitely, it's less. I don't know. When I was putting things under the microscope and trying to attain this level of perfection that just doesn't exist, I think it's you end up not happy as well, and so even if you come out with a good product, all I think about with that first album now is how hellish the making of it was. And even though I like the songs, I still, it reminds me of a period in my life that was really difficult creatively. Whereas when I think to Thelonious Punk or Junk Funk Hospital, or Funland, all I think is the fact that I was either laughing or Eddie Tears were tears of joy. It was I just have great associations with making that. This run of albums that I've done from Junk Funk Hospital through to the latest Edward Show thing, I just have nothing but good memories of making the albums. There's so much freedom and improvisation. It's like some of the things for percussion, I'd be hit. I had a wok, and I was hitting the wok for percussion, and it was making this kind of really weird sound. And I can do things like that. I can.
Is that on the album?
Yeah, on I did an album called Junk Funk Hospital. That was my first.
I think it's on Spotify, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. It's on Bandcamp as well, but I think it's on Spotify. Yeah, and it's the introduction to that album. There's several noises that go on. It's another concept album, but there's on that introduction you can actually hear somewhere there's the sound of the wok being hit and doing this wah 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 kind of sound, and
that's really funny. I listened to that earlier. I think I only listened to the first 2 tracks on it and made a point. I'd not listened to it before. I made a point to go back and. But I didn't. Yeah, it didn't occur to me that's what that's.
Yeah, I think that there's 2 things. There's a Tibetan singing bowl that I used, and I think I pitch shifted, and that was a gift off a friend of mine called Suzanne. And then the wok being hit, and I think I just used a little Zoom handheld recorder to record the wok, and then I just plugged it into my recording system, and. I'm sure I manipulated the sound in some way, but I can't remember what I did. But yeah, I can. The point is that I can do things like that, and just because I think I was washing up one day, and I was washing the wok up, and when I caught it with my hand, and it made a certain noise, and I just thought, yeah, I could record that. That sound, good on an album.
That's a tune.
Yeah. So yeah,
I like it. So do you think that that's a mindset now that you've achieved, or do you think if suddenly in the next year or so you amassed 1,000 true fans, as they say, that's all that you need these days, would you then feel a sudden new pressure to keep them, or do you think you would maintain this mindset of I'm just going to create whatever comes naturally?
I don't think I could do it any other way now. I couldn't. I can't do things to please. You can't please everybody. So it's once you start trying to please everybody, then that you're going down the wrong path, really. So I think you have to just do what comes natural to you. I if anything, I want to experiment more. I want to get further out there. I did an EP some time ago called Delirium Pie, and that is it's basically a load of nonsense. I sometimes when I get ill, I go delirious, and one night I felt really rough, and I started feeling myself going a bit loopy. So I had the foresight to hit the record button on the voice recorder app on my phone, and basically all the recording is me talking random nonsense when I was delirious and didn't have a clue what I was saying, and I just the next day I imported that into Cubase, added some bits of music behind it, and put it out as an EP. And so so that EP is literally me talking random delirious nonsense into a mobile
That's
phone.
really interesting. Did you remember it, what you'd said the next day?
No, I have kind of weird experiences sometimes when I go delirious. There was one time that in the last house we were living in, my wife had gone out, and I started feeling ill, and I went delirious. And when she got home, I'd somehow gone and got a load of books, and I'd left a trail of books going through the downstairs of the house, up the stairs, and up towards the bedroom, so that she knew how to find me, so she could follow this trail of books. And when she got home, I wasn't even in the bedroom anyway. I'd somehow moved from the bedroom into the lounge, and I was asleep on the sofa. So
So it wasn't the right trail anyway.
No. But so yeah, I do have strange moments when I go into one of these delirious.
I can't imagine what that's like. But I like that you've turned it into something artistic. Is that something that we can listen to, or has that one not been put out?
Yeah, that's on Bandcamp. It's I think it's a three songs long, and there's actually a description of the story behind the album as well on the Bandcamp page.
So obviously we talked about being creatively free, and that's the best thing, and that's what gives you the best memories of making the album, is the ones that you've just genuinely enjoyed and not had to be be a perfectionist about. Do you think that there are artists who do make a lot of money and make careers for themselves just because they've mastered the business side of it, and the music doesn't mean that much to them? And do you think that that's ultimately unfulfilling and makes them not want to do it anymore? And on the flip side, do you think there are any artists at the moment doing exactly what they want to do, who have pushed through and made, a sort of a decent living for themselves and built a fairly decent following? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people who have made what they define as success doing music that doesn't really mean a lot to them, but
just because they've cracked the formula kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe they're very happy, maybe they will stay happy. It's I don't really know. I'm a bit out of touch, I don't really follow the latest I mean, I delve into it occasionally. Sometimes I'll switch the radio on just to see what's going on, and I'm a bit of an old man. What's this? What's this noise? Whatever. And all I hear is the same production styles and the same chord progressions. And
that's just fact.
Yeah, so I switch it off again, and so I don't really pay much attention. And I know a lot of those songs are written by. Not written by the artists. You hear about these. Is it Dr. Luke and Max Martin? They write, certain percentage of all the songs that you hear on the radio or something. And they write some great songs. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot out there that I don't like, but there are songs that I think that do stand the test of time. Some of Britney Spears' songs I think are great pop songs. I did a cover of Rihanna, "Only Girl in the World" on the Edward Show album, and that wasn't me making fun of Rihanna or the song. I genuinely think it's one of the greatest pop songs in the last 20 years. I think it's an incredible bit of songwriting, and that's why I did it. I didn't do it to make fun of anybody or anything.
I don't think it sounds like you're making fun, to be honest. It sounded like you're just taking it, and it was a really good part of the album. That I really enjoyed that.
But what
was the other cover on there?
I did Queen, "Don't Stop Me Now."
Oh, that was it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but as the other side of your question, is there anybody who has done things their own way and made a success? Yes, I was actually thinking about this earlier today. Do you know a band called the Lemon Twigs?
No, I don't think so.
No, they came out a couple of years ago. It's two brothers. At the time they released their first album, I think one of them was 17 and the other was 19, and they're just incredible musicians. I think they're from New York, and they do kind of classic pop music, 60s, 70s influenced stuff. But they have just released their second album. I actually went to see them earlier this year. It's one of the best rock and roll shows I've seen in years. They're so good. The younger brother is one of the best drummers out there, I think. He's got this kind of Keith Moon energy. They're a bit kind of their first album is a little bit influenced. But do you remember a band called Jellyfish from the 90s?
I know of them.
Yeah, they're kind of Jellyfish influenced, But yeah, they're just incredible, and they've just released their new album, and it's a concept album about a monkey who goes to school, gets bullied, and ends up burning the school down, and then running back off into the forest or the woods or whatever. And it's such an adventurous piece of work. Being honest, I don't like it as much as their first album. As much as I love musicals, it's a good album, but it hasn't totally grabbed me. Maybe it will do in the future. But it's such a brave move, I think, to make the album that they've made. And it's surprising that a record company would allow it, but in these times. But it's
they're a signed band, are they?
Yeah, they're doing. I get the impression they're doing quite well for themselves. I mean, I don't. Again, their idea of success might be different to mine, but they appear to be doing what they want and having fun doing it, which to me is success.
That's the other side of it, isn't it? I think everyone's idea of success is different. So bands that I've followed for like years and that seem to be doing well and they're always gigging and stuff, sometimes they'll make a tweet or do a blog about how they feel a bit disheartened that it's not gone further.
Yeah.
Which is something you don't really realise as a fan, especially if you've got you've got their merch and stuff, and to you they seem like a genuine band and you look forward to seeing them and stuff. But then they compare themselves to kind of the Foo Fighters or the Ed Sheerans, which is just a Glastonbury headline position. Which is just a totally different kettle of fish, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, a lot of a lot of my favourite musicians don't have a particularly large fan base. and I don't know why it's I don't know what it's like for them, but it's kind of frustrating for me to see them see their music not reaching the size of audience it should.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that all the time reviewing stuff. I'm just like, oh, this is incredible. Why has this person got 20 Facebook likes and
I mean,
no one's listening to this?
I mean that I said it. I'm glad that I don't base my idea of success on following or size of audience, because I would have given up long ago, because I don't have an audience. I don't have fans really. But
yeah, but you've not done. I mean, you've not really pushed kind of into the. Have you ever done like anything in terms of music marketing courses and that kind of thing?
No, I haven't. I'm terrible with business. I like to create. I like to to me, it's kind of like being a kid and playing with toys, and it's like somebody sticks a piece of paper in front of me with big words on, and I'm like, let me go back to the sandbox and the Lego things, and so
But that's a great quality. That's the kind of thing people want to stumble upon. So then it's like, that's when you need a kind of manager side of it, when it just starts getting complicated.
Yeah, I think though, I don't know. I think maybe to have a manager or somebody who deals with that side of things, maybe you need to have a certain size of audience. I don't know. I know a lot of people do it themselves these days. A lot of people do deal with the business side as well as the creative side.
Yeah,
and I don't know. It's like at school I was never good at maths, but I was good at music or whatever, and it's similar kind of thing to me now. It's I'm not good with figures and business and things like that.
If you were invited to play a gig, do you think you would go along?
Yeah, I'm almost at that point now. I've talked with a few people about doing some shows. I'm going to be taking the Edward Show live soon, but as I said, that's a stepping stone to Pete Murphy live. I've spoke to there's a possibility of me playing in London in December. I don't know if I'm supposed to say too much because nothing's confirmed or whatever. We've just been talking about it. But Ergo Fismiz's partner Lottie runs an evening in London. It's a thing called Deprestival Presents, and there's been talk of me going down there and performing at their anti-Christmas show. It's like an anti-folk night. They call it. It's not avant-garde. It's avant-hard, and they put on some great stuff. And there's been talk of me going and doing that. So, and if it does happen, I'm a bit torn on whether to do it as the Edward Show or as me. But yeah. So I'm kind of I'm at the kind of I'm on the cusp at the moment. It's kind of a difficult one because it's kind of like the final frontier for me, the live performance. And I think I've conquered a lot of things in the last couple of years. It's not just musically, but personally. I did a trip to America on my own in February, which was a big deal. As you know, in the past, I've gone through times where just leaving the house to go to the local shop has been a big deal.
So you've been working on the just self-development personally first, and then a kind of step-by-step thing towards this goal of playing live. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
That's like later on.
It's Well, it's kind of been going hand in hand, really. It's I've been conquering the personal things alongside the musical things. I've been doing these experimental albums and that, alongside actually leaving the house and going to gigs. I went to a gig. The first gig I went to on my own was actually early last year, I think. There's an artist called Alessi. She goes under the name Alessi's Arc, and I went to see her, and I had a chat with her afterwards and explained that I've always been a kind of a socially anxious person, and this was the first time I'd ever been to a gig on my own, and she just put her arms around me, and it was really nice. She gave me a little gift, and so I go to see her whenever I can now, and she's a really nice person, really good artist. She does it's kind of, I don't know what you'd call it. It's kind of very melodic, poppy, folk kind of music. But if you get a chance, check out a song called "Wives" by Alessi's Arc. It's a really, really great song. It's one of those songs that you hear and think, oh, I wish I'd written that song.
Yeah. Whereabouts is she based?
I think she's based in London. But she's got a number of albums out. I think she's had some success, but she's just a really, you get kind of a really good vibe from her when you meet her. A really nice person.
The other thing that I was going to mention was I was going to bring up C6 Steve. I don't know if you've heard of him or aware of him.
Yeah, I'm aware of him through his what record label is he on? I can't remember the record label.
I was just reading about him today, but no, I can't remember the label. But yeah, he's doing incredibly well. But when you read about him, he was well into his 60s before anyone had heard of him. But to the mainstream eye, he kind of didn't. He suddenly appeared.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
Like, oh, it's cool, But through his eyes, he's always been a musician. He's been a traveling musician since he was very, very young, and so nothing really changed except the size of the stage as he got much older.
Yeah,
and that was quite an inspiring. And obviously, he's just completely himself. He makes his own instruments, does his thing.
Yeah, I think it's great. James Hall, one of my favourite musicians, once said to me that said you're never too old to be a rock star. And I think sure. C6 Steve proves that,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. So what's so you hopefully doing some gigs as Edward in the near future, like in the next couple of months?
Yeah.
What's next for you recording wise? Have you got anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I'm rehearsing the Edward show at the moment, but I'm kind of I don't have any plans for more Edward music at the moment. So it's back to musically, it's back to Pete Murphy, and I'm working on. I'm sure I've said this before, but I'm always carrying around a number of projects in my head at any given moment, and I'm currently working on a pair of albums. They're kind of I guess like a brother and sister album. One's called Unpop Music and the other one's called Pop Music. But it will be my version of pop music. So,
Okay, cool. So it's quite with the performance, because I'm quite surprised that you say that you're quite introverted. When I watched, like, you did the Tasco video for Edward and stuff, and just from listening to your music, there's definitely a confidence about it.
Yeah, I mean, I am very introverted. I even though I can go to a gig on my own now, I don't go out very often. I'm not a very social person. I'm very quiet, very shy. I always have been.
Do you think when you sing the way that you do then on your record that like that's kind of is like a release for you? Is it therapeutic to express yourself because there's a lot of like volume to a lot of the stuff on all the albums that I've listened to, you know, and you fill it out with loads of piano pieces and big drums and stuff like that. Does it feel therapeutic to you to make that kind of music and get all that out of your system?
I guess, yeah. It's I mean, I used to use arrangement as a cover-up for my insecurities. Now I use arrangement as a way of expressing myself. So I don't. How do I answer this correctly?
That's a good answer.
I'm more comfortable with my voice now.
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing you could just stand at the mic and do. I guess is what I'm trying to say. It seems like it would be, you know, mildly theatrical type of thing to witness.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've never really thought too much about. I'm just kind of running it through my head now, but I think now I've been the Edward Show thing I've been practicing has been acoustic guitar and vocal, and I have recently added, like, I'm doing playing cajon with like a kick drum pedal, and I've got a little box that I tap with my foot to do a snare drum as well. But it's previously I would never have been comfortable with just an acoustic guitar and vocal, even on a recording. But
yeah, I totally
as I said, that's where why I said that I used to use arrangement to cover up my insecurities. I may have filled things out just because it would maybe distract you from my voice. You know, if I'll put a nice string part here, it might distract from my singing. Whereas now, the reason that I put a string part in is because I can hear a string part in my head and I feel it needs to be there, and it's not to divert your attention from my singing, and
it's to enhance the moment, or to
so I feel more comfortable now. If I don't feel that a song needs anything other than a voice and a guitar, or a voice and a piano, or just a voice, then I will just do the voice and not flesh it out with lots of other things.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So just like last couple of questions. How important do you think collaborating with other artists is? Obviously, the first time I heard you was you collaborated with Acoustic Maddie. Do you think that kind of thing helps you? Do you feel more confident when you're working with somebody else, or would you rather just do your own thing and shape it yourself?
I find it difficult in some ways because I think when you're first coming up with a song, writing songs is a very solitary thing for me. It's you know, I don't want somebody hearing me sitting there working something out, going like la, la, you know. To me, it's embarrassing, and I
breaks the mood a bit.
Yeah, and it's, I know when I'm on my own, I can just sit there and make silly noises and sing out of tune and or, you know, scream if I want to because something's going wrong, or and I think I feel more self-conscious when I'm working with someone. I mean, the Maddie thing was very different because she's in 1,000 miles away, so our sessions were done via email and passing.
Oh, you just sent a bit to each other.
Yeah, so you know, we'd send ideas back and forth, or I'd, you know, I think I'm trying to think how we did it now. Yeah, so she would come up with a song, and she'd send the lyrics, and I'd sing a verse, and then send her the vocal file back, and she would add that in. Or I think there was a bit where she said to me, write me some lyrics and send them to me. So I did, and we ended up with a song from that. And but it was very much, you know, we did our own. You know, we did our own work and then passed things back and forth. And it was. You
can hear that. It's totally a fusion of both of your styles, having heard you individually and then together, which I really liked about it. You didn't kind of settle on, you know, one or the other or some new thing.
Yeah, it's
put yourselves into it?
Yeah, we didn't really. I mean, originally it was just going to be an EP, and then we started working on it, and we just wrote more and more songs, and it became an album. And it was very interesting to do, and there was. It was weird. There were. I don't know. Things just seemed to happen. It was like, there were some. I'm trying to let me just. Yeah, I don't really think any song on the album was done in the same way. There was, there were songs where Maddie wrote and recorded all the music, and then I sang over it. Or there were songs where I recorded the music and she did bits on top of that. And there were, some songs where I wrote lyrics and she wrote music, and it was a bit of a free for all, really. Because we didn't go into it with any expectations, really. I didn't know what was going to happen, so we just were like, okay, let's do this and see what happens.
Any rules as well?
Yeah, no rules, and I think that's how Maddie works anyway. She doesn't stick to the rules, and I like that about her. She's very free with her music and very very expressive, very. And she's a really, really nice person as well. Her music at times can sound really aggressive and angry and loud, but you communicate with her, and she's a really, really nice person. She's not this shouty, angry lady. She's just a really, really laid.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of times, like the heavier metal bands that I tend to work with, they just end up being some of the nicest people ever. From any of your projects whatsoever, if you were to choose the song to kind of see this session to a finish, which one would you choose for me to play?
I don't know. There's so much that is really special to me for different reasons. I mean, like the Jenny LeBlanc album, one of my favourite people in the whole world actually played the part of Jenny LeBlanc on that. She's a lady in America. She's an artist called Suzanne, and so I really love the fact that she is a big part of that album. And also my wife did the narration on the album. Thelonious Punk is I really love that album. It's like asking me which of my dogs is my favourite. I think a song that really encompasses a lot of what I do is the first song from the Thelonious Punk album. It's called Emma's Dizzy Spells, and it's melodic. It has strings. It has guitars. It has and lyrically, it's about me as well.
I wrote that one down actually as a possible intro. I was going to ask you that, or the intro off from Jenny LeBlanc. Is it just called In?
Oh yeah, that's just the where
it's like a soundscapey.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah. That's kind of introduced, because I seem to end up doing concept albums. I don't know why, it just happens. But yeah, that kind of.
But it's cool. I like that. It's got quite a spooky feel.
Yeah,
to
it introduces the story. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of the story behind the album, but it kind of the main character gets shot while she's skating on some ice with her partner, and it's actually her partner who did the shooting. And so the bang you hear is the gunshot and all that, and then when the music goes all funny and warpy, that's her slipping into her unconscious state. I'm proud of everything I've done. I don't think there's anything that, sometimes I listen back to an album. I said I don't do it very often, but I do occasionally listen to my work, and I think, I could have done that a bit differently, or I could have done that better, because they're all done so quickly and there's so much improvisation that happens. But overall, I'm massively, massively proud of everything that I've put out. And so there's nothing on there that I think, that's embarrassing, don't play that or whatever. So
is there any thing that you might be able to say as kind of a means of inspiring someone who's also quite introverted but hasn't yet got to the point of putting out their music but is very creative? Is there anything that you've learned that would help with that?
I don't know, because I don't know if there's anything that anybody, if I was, if the roles were reversed and I was younger again, listening to somebody else talking about how they'd overcome their problems, I don't know if it would have an impact on me. But it's and for me, it has definitely been a process and a long period of time to get to this stage. I mean, I could.
You say it's been doing things rather than just thinking about doing.
Yeah,
things.
I mean, I think. I guess what I'd say is don't do anything to try and please anyone else. Do what makes you happy. Don't try and I did my time trying to copy my favourite artists and sound like my favourite artists. And although I still have my favourite artists now, I don't think I sound anything like them. They might be massive influences on me, like Ergo Physmis and people like that, but I don't think I sound anything like my influences. And that takes time as well to get there.
To find it, yeah. I don't think you sound like anyone in particular. I think that was one of the things that I liked about your music. It just was, it was really good, really full sounding, really musically kind of satisfying and interesting, but also that it just sounded new, It was like, oh, who's this? This is a completely new character or person or artist.
Oh, thank you.
Which is great.
Because I have to say, I don't really know what I'm doing. I have no real training. I had guitar lessons when I was younger, but I can't read music. I can't write music. I don't know how to do string arranging or anything like that. I just mess around and
just play.
Yeah, and so it's nice to have somebody say something nice about what I do, because I don't very often hear. I don't necessarily hear bad things either. I just don't hear anything usually, other than people that are really close to me, like my mum or my wife or my closest friends. Nobody really says much about what I do. I don't get a lot of feedback. So this is why I think it's pointless trying to follow any trends or do anything that to please other people, because when it comes to my music, nobody really cares anyway. So I might as well just do what I want to.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to chat with you and kind of get a little bit of insight to behind the music and
it's been good to chat with you
and stuff.
To a dissident doctor to see if he could help with a trichotillomania. Emma's having dizzy spells from lack of perfection. It happens in the mirror when she sees her reflection. The only cure is making sure that nobody sees her. When I met her deadbeat brother to see if he would